This is an RNZ podcast.
They say it takes a village to raise a child. I'm Kathryn Ryan, and here we draw on my conversations with experts on 9 to Noon to help you navigate family life. We're discussing tips for successfully getting children into a love of tramping. The weather's warming up, international travel's off the agenda for now, and many New Zealanders are thinking about how they might see different parts of our own backyard in a different way this summer. Jamie Stewart is a keen tramper, father of 3, and on the executive of Federated Mountain Clubs. He says there are lots of great ways to kick off a love of the backcountry. Jamie, thanks for coming in. Another glorious day in Wellington it is.
Pleasure, Kathryn.
It's one of the things we might talk about. What do you do with the little kids when the rain comes? Look, you're a busy family and a young family, just a fairly newborn as well.
Yes, we have an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 2-month-old. So a different outdoor journey beginning.
It does. How early will you get out into the outdoors with kids?
I think it starts straight away. You got to show them and make it a habit. As a dad, you've actually got you don't have many levers in that first few months, but one lever I think you do have is the baby gets past you, it's sort of happy. You can rip its clothes off. You can take it outside. You can expose it to the sun, expose it to the birdsong, and my kids at least have all responded really well to that.
So from that earliest age, you begin that introduction to outdoors.
Absolutely. Kids are sensory beings. You know, they want to experience the world, and I think that starts straight away.
Can you do family activities still with a baby that young? Like, how ambitious might you get on even a day trip out?
Family activities depend not only on the kids but also on the parents and their levels of experience and what they're comfortable with. It's really important that you do things that you are comfortable with, and they don't need to be big. We do a lot of heading down into our local river, our local streams and bush, and we started off straight away. As soon as the baby's big enough to be carried in a sling with mum and the other 2 kids, you can walk 5 or 10 minutes up a river, find a little spot. That's all the little kids are after, really. And, yep.
So for a newborn baby, you've got a sling. How does the equipment upgrade as they get a little bit older? We go into a front pack or something, or what?
Yeah, sling. It's been a while for me since the last one, but yes, sling, typically front pack. I've always personally found the front packs don't last for very long. They're a bit hard on the old abs. Move into a backpack as soon as you can. With our kids, it's been about 6 months. I remember with our firstborn, our daughter, hit 6 months and you're away. Yeah, when you've got a firstborn, you've got a handbag for a while if you're an experienced outdoors person. You can really have some fun and make the most of it. It's a golden year or 2.
Yeah.
The journey changes a bit after that.
Once they start walking. So that's a good point, actually. When they're very young, you're in control. That can change. The other thing about the backpack, as soon as it is practical and sensible to get there, is it's a bit like the old prams and pushchairs, isn't it? Baby can see more. Like at the start, it's probably cool that baby can see mainly mum or dad or whoever's carrying them. But once they're a little bit older, if they can see outwards, from your own experience with children, what are they experiencing, even at that quite young age? As you say, they're very sensory.
Kids, before they're moving, they're looking around, aren't they? Just looking everywhere, trying to make eye contact. Presumably they're trying to smell, they're trying to touch with their hands.
Straight in the mouth, of course.
Straight in the mouth. Yeah. Getting them down into natural environments and giving them a range of experience around that. Water, they love water.
So you made that important point. You stay in your comfort levels, and your comfort levels may well predate even having kids. Stay in the environment and are confident in. You mentioned stuff changes a little bit by the time we're up on our feet. And what does that mean for recreation?
I think this is an area people generally don't do that well. I think when kids start walking, you want to look even harder at the environments you're taking them into. Kids still like natural surfaces, They like tracks with roots and rivers with rocks. I think sometimes people are a bit reluctant to get them in there at 2 young in age, we tend to get unduly stuck on gravel paths, sometimes flat gravel surfaces. I found, with my kids, they just respond so well to actually being in the bush, actually being in rivers.
It's that safety conscious society that we are now, and with good reason. But again, does this come down to you knowing your environment? If you're going to splash around with little kids and get the mossy rocks underfoot, you want to know the waterway that you're dealing with. You want to be confident and obviously onto it, and not getting out of your own area of knowledge and competence and confidence.
That's right. You want to be their rock in the outdoors as much as you want to be their rock in the rest of their life. So you have to be confident first and foremost. But giving them that gift of actually being able to comfortably be in the outdoors is also about habit. It's not something that you're going to give them if you go into the outdoors once every few months. Actually getting out there daily, weekly sort of basis, giving them those movement skills and those decision-making skills that comes from moving across terrain, running around on the beach, smashing through waves. Every minute that they're out there, they're making decisions, they're coming to grips with their own body, and that habit that you can create for them is really important.
What have you done with your older kids at various ages and stages? And let's get into now to tramping and perhaps longer trips where you're also going to stretch not only their physical muscles and their balance and their proprioception, all that kind of stuff, but their tolerance and patience and, instead of after 2 hours, when's the ice cream and we're going home. What have you been able to introduce at different ages with your older kids?
Personally, I would really like to emphasise tramping doesn't have to be about suffering, about getting to a certain place. It is really more about being there. Some of the best trips, we've done longer trips with our kids, but some of the best trips we've done have been where we've been creative. For example, we did a great trip in the Puriora range. I'd heard about this community group that had been trapping to protect kokako, which is the most beautiful sounding bird. And I've got a rough idea, of where they were living. And we found a spot where we could park up, walk an hour into the bush, through the bush, set up a tent and camp for the night. Wake up in the morning with the sound of kokako. Walk back out, but you're only talking an hour each way. But it's just about being creative, not doing what you're told to do. You know what I mean?
Not starting off into Araroa.
Even not starting off on a 4-day tramp on, where you've got to go boom, 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 boom. Yeah.
A lovely email that sort of actually times in right perfectly here. Our trick to taking small children tramping was to make it all about them. We made the days short to start with and had food that they liked. Mixed some nice-to-have treats with filling nutritious food. The labelling of high-fibre bread and water as mountain bread and water, respectively, made them sound something special. Each child from the age of 2 carried a small pack with a snack, water bottle and warm jacket in it in case of emergencies. Bushcraft lessons were wound into every conversation. When small people were tired, a ride on top of a grown-up's pack helped to ease the problem. Don't worry about taking too much stuff. Children can sleep in their walking clothes just like adults do. Take pictures, then at home make a story about it. We had a teddy that went on many adventures and seemed to pop up in every picture. The kids seemed to soak up information and experience without realising they were learning, and we had some great family experiences. They're getting it right, aren't they?
Oh, fantastic advice.
Yeah.
I think they've pretty much covered my do list.
What are some of the situations you come across, though, either to be avoided or to navigate? Like, what are the moments where you've had someone unhappy, and how have you navigated that?
Okay. It's quite easy, especially on longer trips, to get yourself into inflexible situations. The problem with 4 or 5 day trips is that it's always really hard to pick the weather. And if there's one good tip for going tramping with kids, it's just go in good weather. Grab a good forecast. Grab a night. But with longer trips, you often can't do that, and getting out of that can be tough. To be avoided, really.
Yeah.
Try and avoid your kids getting cold.
Yeah. And that can happen. Well, let's talk about gear actually, because even if it is a day trip, little people's bodies are different from big people's bodies. And what have you learned about how much and then how little, depending on conditions, and certainly having both covered off? What do you need to think about packing, even for a few hours trip?
Yeah, I'd always have a complete spare pair of clothes, even a towel to get them dried off. My kids have always been a bit prone to jumping in rivers and lakes and stuff, even on cold days. So I've always had to have a towel to dry them off and a new set of clothes to put them in. Good shoes.
Yeah, what about footwear at different ages? Because that's the other thing. You don't want to make $400 sort of expensive footwear.
No.
What will they need and where can you get it from?
Well, even to be honest, number one shoe warehouse is where we go for our shoes.
Yep.
I'd really like to put a plug in for good old-fashioned running shoes. We have historically had a bit too much of a focus on heavy packs and boots in tramping. And for kids, it's I think as long as you get them in the habit of walking on terrain, it's actually really unnecessary and can be detrimental to their experience. Get them in good shoes, even just for general life. You notice a lot of people don't have their kids in good shoes.
But they don't necessarily have to be the top of the line, three-figure cost.
Oh, $40, $50 from the Warren Shoe Warehouse.
Two other vital things that can change very quickly, even on a day trip, is the amount of warmth you need and then the windbreaker rain situation. What kind of kit do you have for each, for your kids?
We carry raincoats, carry fleeces.
Yeah.
Woolen hats. A lot of your heat goes out of your head.
Yeah.
They're very much similar to what you would take for an adult. But yeah, again, I can honestly say I try to avoid those situations as much as possible. I remain flexible, but when I take our kids into the hills.
So you really look at that forecast, get skilled at forecasting and work around that.
Yeah. Yep.
If you're doing the longer trips, huts or tents?
Well, huts are great. Huts are the closest many of us have, a different form, but the closest many of us have to a marae, the shared space, the simplicity. You get to meet lots of other people. So I love huts. But tents can also be good for kids.
Now, the next thing is, how involved at different ages and stages are kids capable of getting involved in, say, setting up a tent, for example?
I think that starts 3, 4, 5-year-old kids.
Pass me the peg could be the starting point.
Tents are fantastic. Even if you put them up in your lounge, tents are fantastic. All kids love tents.
It's also about them learning, and I'm curious as to what your experience has been, learning to take responsibility over time as well. So you're really growing them for the future, whether it's packing their own gear. From quite a young age, do you get them to pack their own gear?
Yes,
give it a go?
We do. You mentioned before or maybe your listener did, the importance of anticipation. Kids love anticipation. Get out a map, get out a guidebook, and talk to them a week or so in advance or a month or so in advance about where you're going and what you need to do and what gear you'll need. Packing a few days in advance, looking at the type of food you're going to take. The more you anticipate it, the more joy they get out of it. And
the more, again, as the emailer said, the more they own it and they're in the thick of it. They're not just being taken along for the ride.
Absolutely.
This is something I find really interesting, this emailer. My dad would take me overnight tramping from when I was 4 or 5 years old. In my 20s, I gave it up for nearly 20 years. I took it up again in my mid-40s, and planning logistics-wise and an enjoyment, it was just like riding a bike straight back into the serious backcountry, no problem. So grateful for the upbringing. I think that's so wise, because kids who grow up in any kind of outdoor environment or getting out of town environment, they often will go away in years where they're busy with work or kids or travel or partying.
Yep.
But what's laid down in the DNA at that age and stage, you never lose it and you come back to it. Can you agree?
Oh, we hear that all the time. People are busy in their 20s and 30s with their jobs and their other ambitions, their sports. When you have your own kids, it's a really good time to start. People often settle down, lose their other interests sometimes, or they get maybe taken away a little bit, and you remember the stuff that you learnt when you were young, and it creates a whole lot of the opportunities return.
What has it meant for your relationships for you and your kids as well? Because we know we're spending so much time with me on my device and them on their devices, and that's part of our world. But what has having this strong part of your family life meant for your individual relationships with your kids?
Oh, it's really special. I was lucky enough to be able to take my daughter tramping last summer up to a hut called Kapanui Hut at the edge of the Tararua Forest Park. It's the first time I'd taken her for sort of a longer 2-day trip by herself, and it's just such a great experience. Seeing, just real joy in her face. We did it in a slightly different way, where we got to move through the bush a bit. Second morning, we were up on the tops doing a cup of tea on a Primus. The world all around us. You could see out to Kapiti Island, down towards Wellington. I think it's very special.
Do we underestimate what children are capable of, and even children who have physical or other challenges in their lives, do we underestimate what they can do if we, again, think about it and plan it?
Children are all different. Our middle child's autistic, and I spend a lot of time outdoors with him because that's, it's really a way of our family coping in many ways, but it's also something he responds very positively to. Children are all different.
But they all, in your experience, most will get something out of this, and their relationships will get something out of this.
I think so. There's no golden rules. Well, there's no. It's not going to work for everybody. There'll be kids that don't like the outdoors, but you give them the opportunity. I think there's something there for the vast majority of kids to find and hold on to.
So where did we start? Start in your own comfort level, your own comfort zone. Don't be afraid to start too young. Start with simple and straightforward, and build everybody's expectations. Involve the kids the whole way. The planning, the anticipation. Have lots of fun.
Take friends.
Yeah.
Take friends.
Group trips. That's the other thing. You can have families get together every year for years and years to do this stuff. Yeah. Wonderful, Jamie. Thank you. Jamie Stewart, keen tramper, dad of 3, and on the executive of Federated Mountain Clubs. Thanks for coming in.